What if your first big idea isn't the one that takes you all the way? For so many women in business, we're taught that to chase the dream with relentless belief, but what happens if that dream hits a wall and needs a pivot and needs to change? Today's guest, Alison Katschkowsky, had to ask herself this very question. So she had a thriving fitness business and the pandemic shut it all down. And she had to decide through the grieving process, and it's a process, right? Of pivoting is a process. And we talk all about the process of pivoting and what helped her to see it as a gift and an opportunity, and what your pivot can be seen as a gift and as an opportunity. It was so great. We jumped into themes of overworking, people pleasing, burnout. She's a generator in human design. So, all you generators and manifesting generators, your go, go, go energy is amazing, but it also can be a lot and can keep you in a pocket of doing things that you feel like you should do and not really what's lighting up your soul. So we dive into everything. I can't wait for you guys to meet her. Again, thank you so much for being with us on this episode. Every episode, it just means so much to me. So feel free to comment on YouTube and comment on Spotify. We reply to those comments. I see every single comment, and it really makes my heart so happy. So excited that we get to dive into this journey. But before we get into the episode, we're going to invest in your peace, because as we do so, everything else will change. Everything else in your soul matters when you pour in peace into your life. And you can only pour in peace into your life when you really look at what's going on with your soul, when you look at what's interfering with your success, when you look at your human design and see how you can tap into those gifts. And also, sometimes our gifts are our greatest challenges. And so we need that information in order to have inspiration. Okay, so before we dive into this, I know sometimes you speed up this part, but please don't. I want you to invest in your peace just for 2 minutes. And if you are in a seated position, you can ground down and get comfortable and close your eyes. If you're driving, walking, just do what you need to do and just listen to this and get in tune with the inspiration that's going to come to you during this episode. I would like you, if you are able to, if your hands are free, you can put one hand or two hands on your heart and gently press in what feels comfortable to you. This feeling simulates being hugged, being held, being supported. It's a moment to offer empathy and real love for yourself. I always like to breathe in with this feeling of love, inhaling it even more into my lungs. I want you to bring to mind one thing, just one that you're proud of yourself for doing. Maybe it's something big, maybe it's something little. I always think about, I'm proud of myself for getting out of bed, for getting dressed. Whatever it is, lean into that thing. Let that moment of pride fill your body. This is actually real love and appreciation for yourself that often we don't take time to pause, to sink in with. Breathe that in. We're already doing more than you even know, more than you even recognize. Feel that love for yourself. When you're ready, you can put your hands back in normal position. And if you have closed down your eyes, you can open your eyes. This episode just was so amazing. We talk about COVID and we talk about the impact that COVID had. And I know it had a lot of impact on so many people and so much change. I think about my own life. I got COVID and then MS back to back. And I wonder, if I would have never gotten COVID, what would my life be like, But at the same time, I think about the opportunities that I've had through this health journey of having MS that have made me who I am. Allison and I talk about, we never would wish these bad things on ourselves. it's human to not like want bad things to happen. And also it's an opportunity to work through those hard feelings, to work through, to find more hope, to find more light. And that's exactly what my experience has given me, is a newfound look on life and experiencing things to the fullest, being willing to take it easy and not judge myself, but also give myself opportunities to celebrate, to enjoy life, to be present. And we dive all into these topics into this beautiful episode. Allison is a powerhouse in the fitness and wellness industry for over 30 years, and she now coaches leaders and business owners and influencers in the health and wellness space to innovate and grow through online and in-person strategies. Allison is also the go-to expert in retreat design and monetization, helping others create high-impact, profitable events and experiences. We'll have all her links in the show notes. And remember, if you have pulled your human design chart somewhere else, or if you haven't looked at it recently, go onto my site, pull your human design, see the gifts that you were born with, and get a reading. Get a full reading on every single gift that you were born with. Because those gifts matter. They help you to have peace. They help you to have sustainable success in the way that's meant for you. Okay, I can't wait to see you inside the episode. Allison, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me.
This is so great. So, Allison, tell us, what was it like to wake up in COVID during 2020 and realize your business model didn't work anymore?
Whoa, there's so many places I could start there. The thing about 2020, what was almost like living in a different universe for so many of us, is that literally the world was functioning one minute and the next minute it wasn't. And it was a matter, I think it was just a lot of things. I mean, there's been enough time now that it's 2025, so I feel like I can look at this a lot more like through a much more objective lens, if you will. But there was a lot, despite all the stuff that none of us really understood, and I don't really want to go there. But it was really, I think, the perfect storm of a lot of things coming to a head for people. I think what we had seen for the previous few years was this, entrance of the virtual world, and everything was becoming a lot more popular and accessible online. But you still had people like me who were existing mostly in person and have been doing that very successfully for many years, even though the landscape and all of that was changing too. So I think what you had was you had a perfect storm of trends and things that were changing all at once with this major world event that just got everybody's attention. And so for me, I'm not going to lie to you. For me, the first month of all of that, I felt like I was in a black hole, because here I was, a successful business owner for close to 20 years. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't work anymore? What do you mean I can't do this anymore? This makes no sense. I mean, what do you mean it's not safe? I mean, give me a break. That's kind of where my brain was.
Yeah, because you were working in gyms and
Totally.
everything shut down and there was no close contact whatsoever.
Well, but at the forefront of all that was this message that you have to be healthy and take care of yourself and stay healthy. But yet you're telling people, you've got people in positions of power everywhere, and I don't want to get political here, but you've got people in positions of power and influence saying, you can't do that anymore. That's the message that people were hearing. And so here I am, I'm sitting here, I've been in the health and fitness industry since I was a college student. That was in the 80s. And I'm like, what do you mean this doesn't work anymore? I mean, there was a part of me, talk about cognitive dissonance, right? There was a part of me that was like, this is not happening. I'm living in an alternate universe. So after about the first month or 6 weeks of all that, when the smoke started to clear a little bit, and like it or not, that's what we were dealing with, I finally was like, okay, now's my opportunity to work on something different, because obviously it's either that or I'm going to have to find a job. That was kind of the choice that I had, right? Yeah. And I know myself well enough to know that, I didn't want to go find a job. I had not spent the last 20 years of my blood, sweat, and tears and effort and energy and everything else building this business that had become so much a part of me, and a message that was so much a part of my identity, that I was like, okay, I've done this before. I've reinvented myself before. I've tried new things before. Why does this have to be any different? It doesn't. But I'm not gonna lie to you. It took me a while to get to that point because for a while it was, I don't think I really wanted to accept and believe what was really happening because there was so much conflicting information. And, some of my clients were really afraid, not because of where I was, but because they were afraid of what was best for them. But I knew that I had a livelihood that I needed to support, right? That I had people depending on me, and I hadn't just spent the last 20 years building a business to have it all just go out the window and smoke. So there was just a lot of this conflicting dialogue in my mind going along until I finally said, all right, now I've finally got the opportunity that I want to make the changes, because at that point I don't really see that I had an option.
Yeah. And I like that you looked at it, and I'm sure it took some bit to get there. You looked at it as
Yeah.
an opportunity. How did you because when you're in the ick of it and you're being told your
Yes.
role that you've identified with for your whole life
Yep. Yep.
is wrong, is going to harm people, how did you internally shift into that it's an opportunity rather than
Well,
just want to be swallowed by the whole thing?
I mean, there was a lot of that going on. I kind of
Yeah.
let myself get swallowed by it for a while. But I just think that for people listening, I think whether it's COVID or some other big event that you're dealing with in your life, I think there just comes a point where you literally wake up one day and you're like, I do not want to keep going on like this. I do not want to keep, making every day and every decision around what is going on outside of me that I really can't control at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point, it was what it was, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. The reality is that something had to give, and what I recognized finally after several weeks of being angry and feeling sorry for myself together, that I had a choice, that I could either make this something that I could work with, or I could just walk away and do something else. And I wasn't, all my life, I have never been the kind of person where I am dipping my toe in and then I pull it out. All of my life, I'm the kind of person where if I'm in, I am in 100% with everything in me. And at that point, I was like, I'm in, I'm going to figure this out. But to answer your question, it was a lot of really talking with myself. It was a lot of negotiating. It was a lot of venting to people around me, because at that point, I think you just wanted somebody to hear you and say, I understand where you are,
Yes.
and I spent a lot of my time in that space for a while. And I got to be honest, I mean, we're all entitled to our feelings and our emotions, but at some point, you have to understand that you do create to some degree where you are as a result of that. And you don't create something big and something new and innovative that supports you if you're sitting around being pissed off and mad about what the world's doing. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So,
And
you
really,
know,
that victim mentality is an
yes,
interfere with our success. And it's okay because we're human being. We want to feel all those feelings of grief and really unlock those and listen to ourselves,
yes, yes,
And I think
100%.
that finding hope in the opportunity is a
Hmm.
really great way that I love to reframe things that are going sideways. I'm like, what's the opportunity here? What can I do to utilize this as a jumping off point instead of a crushing point,
Well, and I think we have to get to that point first. And that's why I
Yes.
want to be very clear with people listening that this wasn't just I'm going to make the best of this and manage. It really wasn't like that for me. And anyone who knows me and was around me during that time knows that I'm telling the truth. I mean, it was, a month or two where I wasn't in that space. And I'm really the kind of person, Courtney, I know, you and I haven't known each other all that long, but I'm the kind of person where I don't let circumstances define me. I just don't. And I'm really the kind of person that always looks at things as the glass half full. What's within my control? What can I do something about? And what is it that I really want? All of my life, when I've decided I want something, I've just gone after it. I haven't waited for the perfect time. I haven't made excuses. That's just, a lot of that was how I was brought up. But I got to be honest, that time period in my career was probably one of the most difficult time periods I've ever been through on a number of levels, because it was a lot of truth telling to myself about what was possible for me. And it was literally a time where I honestly didn't know what was going to happen, But I also think that, I'll just say this too, and then we can move on if you like. is I remember the day that I started my business back in the 90s when I had left a career that was just no longer satisfying for me. And I really didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know the how. I didn't have like a perfect plan. All I knew was that I wanted to give it a shot. And what I learned in 2020, and I want everyone listening to hear this, I had to find that version of myself again. And I think we have to allow ourselves to kind of grieve what's no longer working, right? And then give ourselves permission and decide to step off the cliff and go for it. Because I thought, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's the same thing I told myself all those years ago. If it doesn't work, I'll go find a job, but
Yes.
it did work. And I had to find that version of myself again, but it took a while.
Yeah, and I think being empathetic with the process, it is a process, right? And we don't want to rush the process of healing because
Yeah.
it is
I
a
didn't
lot
want to
of
hear
healing.
that at the time. I'll
Yeah.
be honest. I didn't want to hear that at the time. I don't think any of us want to hear it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it is, working through a lot of feelings and having the courage to work through those feelings,
Yep.
recognizing that there is hope in change and there's
Uh-huh.
opportunity in change. And kind of, I also like to think about it too. A couple phrases when things are going sideways and I'm having lots of feelings is, and I'm looking at something new, I'm like, no one's going to die if I do this. Like, we're all going to be alive. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, that's okay. But that fear of the unknown, of the uncertainty, it doesn't have to stop us from doing that because there's something great on the other side of it.
Totally. 100%. Absolutely
Yeah.
100%. And I had to get to that point within me to kind of detach from everything. But really under the surface, I think the bigger lesson for me is that this was just a deeper dive into who I was and what I really wanted to be doing. And I really think that, and this has probably happened to everybody at some point in time in their life, whether you're a business owner or not, that you have to get to a point where you have to get rid of what no longer really aligns, right? And then, move more in the direction that you really want to go. Now, it's been 5 years since all that happened, and I'm not sure that I will ever be okay with saying, I'm really glad all that happened, right? Because there was just too much that happened that year that didn't make any sense. There were people that I knew that lost everything. There were people that I knew that lost loved ones, right? And I don't want to discount that for 1 minute. But I can honestly say now, after a lot of work on myself and a lot of investing with a coach and everything, that, I would not be where I am today had it not been for going through that. Now, I wish it had
Yes.
happened different, right? But I can honestly say now that experience changed me in more than just the obvious ways. And all of those ways are still revealing themselves to me today.
Yeah, I think that revelation of what is continuing to come to us from the path of choosing the opportunity is really, those are things to be celebrated,
Yeah.
Those are things to lean into. And I feel like COVID brought a lot of hard things, and we don't want to wish that those hard things ever on anything, who it would be weird if we're like, yay. And at the same time, we can choose either to use it as growth or use it to crush us. And I think this is part of your human design too, this energy. So you're a generator in human design. And when we start with our human design, we always start with the type because that's kind of this foundation, right? We're looking at the house. That's your blueprint of your soul. And it has a foundation, and that foundation is your human design type. Now, the mantra for this is I build and bring visions to life through aligned action. The purpose of your soul as a generator is having this energy. You have lots of go, go, go energy. And when you say yes to the things that are lighting you up inside, that are giving you life, that are making you excited, then you are open to new possibilities. You're open to what your energy should do instead of being trapped in doing lots of responsibilities that don't feel happy and sparkly to you,
Yeah.
Oftentimes when in business and in personal life, we look at a pro-con list of like, on paper, it looks like I should do this, but actually your soul is telling you by that sparkly feeling that you need to do this,
Yeah.
that light up feeling is your goal.
Yeah.
is
Right.
the way you handle things, you know? Now, with a generator, because you have so much energy, you can get a lot done, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful gift, but you can also burn out really
Totally.
easily,
100%.
you know?
Yep.
So how have you seen that burnout in your career and life?
Well, it's funny that you bring this up because one of the things that I was actually working on in my business before the 2020 pandemic was just that. I had gotten
Mm.
to a point a few years prior to all of that where I was sort of feeling that, I don't want to call it a calling because I really didn't know what the
Yes.
calling was at the time, but I was feeling, I don't want to say even use the word burned out or uninspired, but I just felt like it was time to do something different. I just didn't know what that was. And I want to be very clear that I had amazing clients that were working with me. I mean, I've been so blessed and fortunate to have worked with so many amazing people. And a lot of people would look at that and say, there's no problem with that. But I think there is a point where we can become trapped by our success. We can get to a point where we feel like, we've kind of lost that spark because we're so busy doing all the things. And then there's a part of us that feels afraid to let that go just because we know what it's taken from us to do it. Right. And so, from building my business with $1,000 in the bank and a clean credit card and nothing else but a whole bunch of belief in myself, to getting to where I had a super successful in-person brick and mortar studio with a small team for many years. It's a lot to look at that and say, I want to do something different because this is no longer enough for me, and it was a really tough seesaw for me to be on for a while because I was still showing up for my clients and doing all the things, but deep down inside, there was a part of me that was just like, I can't wait to go home. What time is it? I want to go home and relax. I can't wait for the next vacation. And, we sit there and we think, this is not good when we start thinking that. Because I can tell you right now, Courtney, I have had very few days where I have gotten up and not wanted to go to work. But I got to be honest, I was having a lot of those days, like those few years before the pandemic stuff actually hit. So I had actually already been through a pretty successful pivot. And I think that's what made 2020 so painful for me, is to watch all of that go out the window. But, once I let myself get through that, then I was like, all right, game on. Obviously, that's not how it was supposed to be, you know?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think for generators, this feeling of responsibility,
Yes.
right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
such a heavy weight because you guys
Yes.
are just this work, work, work portion and gifts with that. So how did you with your mind as you're doing this seesaw thing, right? Of like, I have this responsibility, and this really good thing going for me versus I really hate what my life is looking like. Do you know?
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
you work through that to get to the other
Well,
side?
I mean, had to let myself kind of sit in it for a while. I think our tendency, if we're used to making things happen, our tendency is just to push through it, right? And ignore it.
Mhm.
And so I tried that, I'm going to be honest, for a little while because I felt like, okay, I've always figured this out. Maybe it's just because I need to freshen up my offers, that we can do something different. I just was just this feeling inside of me that just wouldn't go away. And, I just knew then it really came down to a point where I was sitting at home one night talking to my husband about it. And this is before I pulled the trigger and decided to move, and let all that go. He said one night, my husband's an engineer, so he's very process oriented, like very cut and dry and all that. And he said, so what's your plan? What are you going to do? You've been talking about all this. What are you going to do? And so I had to sit there for a minute and I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to have to do something, so
Yes.
otherwise I'm just going to be sitting here and continuing to talk about it. So I
Yes.
literally just one day got up and said, today's the day. I'm going to announce it.
Oh,
And so I had to go and tell my landlord that I was moving. I had to send an email out to my community and say, this is what we're doing now. We're going to be downsizing, moving. We're going to be going online. Of course, that was a process. And then there was like 2 or 3 months to sell equipment and move and all of that.
yeah.
But I have to be honest, once I made that
Yes.
decision, it was this huge feeling of relief. And that's when you know you've done the right thing.
Yes, that feeling of relief, that pressure that was
Yep.
building up. And that happens with generators so much, is this feeling like they're living a life of pressure. And I
Yeah.
want you to live a life of peace. And the strategy here for generators is to build in daily pauses to ask, is this still a yes for
Yeah.
me? Is the direction I'm going in a yes? Is it lighting me up? And really listen to your body and those energetic responses of,
Yes.
oh, it feels lighter, it feels
Yes.
happier, it feels
100%.
joyful. And don't be afraid to pivot with what no longer feels right. That bravery is really important for generators.
Well, and I also think too, when I think back to that version of myself back in, 2015, 2016, is there were a lot of things in the landscape that were shifting then too. There were a lot
Yeah.
of new concepts being introduced in my industry. There were a lot of physical changes in the downtown area where I was. So there were a lot of things that were kind of contributing to that decision. So it literally didn't just come down to me. There were kind of things were just lining up, kind of like the writing on the wall was kind of showing me that, okay, this is all happening. So what are you going to do about it? And so at some point I knew that a move was imminent. I just didn't really know when or what it was going to look like. And then finally, when I made the decision, and I think this is true for any major decision that any of us make, once we make the decision, then we see the next step. And then we see something else and we see something else. And I think that was what I had forgotten to do with myself because I was so busy, producing and serving people and doing all the things that we literally forget that it can be fun too.
Yes. And that is actually, Allison, I'm so glad you brought that up. As a generator, there's so much put on you of shoulds and do this and do that. That fun piece is forgotten.
Yes,
And it
totally.
actually, it should be fun. This stuff should be fun and it shouldn't be a load at all. And going to the next part on your human design chart that stood out to me is when we look at the body graph. So we see these centers that are in white and colored in green. Now the green centers are defined centers, and that means each center has a gift that you were born with. When they're in green, it means you always have those gifts. When they're in white, it means those gifts come in ebbs and flows. So
Okay.
one of your green centers is your point of view and idea center. So you always have this like ideas going through you. You're constantly seeing the possibilities. You're a natural innovator and thinker, and your mind is always on. Also,
Yeah,
the moment you wake
that's
up
accurate.
to the moment you're like, please, I need to go to sleep. Shut off. Yes. Yeah, yeah, and it can create this is a gift because you have these ideas coming to you, but not all ideas are ones that you need to land on and walk with. It could be an idea for you for later. It could be an idea for one of your clients. It could be an idea for now. And you just kind of get to sort and feel through that process and allow it not to feel like pressure, but just to allow it to have fun and
Yeah,
to enjoy the process and know that this is really something special about you that you can
yeah.
give to yourself and to others. Now, with your mind always going, always on the go, this can be tiring. Am I right? Okay.
Yes, it is. Accurate.
Yes. How do you kind of quiet the noise or the busyness of your mind?
Honestly, for me, it's getting my morning workout in
Mm,
early. I'm an early riser, and getting that done first thing for me is like paramount for my day.
nice.
I think back to when I was an athlete in high school and the early part of college, and when I was, when I made the decision to go into health and fitness full time as a career, not just as a hobby, then, I think about the most successful, what works for me in terms of a workflow and all that. And it's getting up in the morning and moving my body and being active, whether it's lifting weights, whether it's going for a walk, or whether it's doing something physical. For me, that is so important. And I know that that is part of how I make my engine go, is that.
Mm,
And at the same time, it's also a way for me to neutralize a lot of that energy, right? To your
yes.
point, and help me channel the energy in a positive way. So
Yes.
there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. And then there's also like very intentional quiet time that I've learned to take with myself in the morning. And, sometimes it's just sitting in the car for 5 minutes and being quiet, or whether it's, reading my devotional, which is on my phone, or whether it's, taking a few minutes to read in the evening before I go to sleep. These are all things that help me literally slow down just enough, but allow me to really channel my energy in the direction that's going to help. Because, I mean, I'm sort of ashamed to even say this as a fitness professional. There were a lot of years that I struggled with that. The hustle
Yeah.
culture is for real. And a
Oh,
lot of it is what we're taught, what we're conditioned
yes.
to believe.
Yes. Well, and it's taught that our worth is tied to what we do.
Yes.
And especially as a
100%.
generator, your gift is doing. And
Yeah.
so often our gifts can also be our greatest challenges. And so they can
Yeah.
be taken too far, you know? And
It can literally be hard to slow
yes.
down sometimes.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I
yes.
completely get that. And, it's almost like I could sit here and say all the reasons why you should slow down. It's kind of
Yes.
like, knowledge alone is not enough to change people's behavior, right? We are who we
Yes.
are. But I think we have to understand that and be intentional about the strategy and the pieces that actually work for us. So,
Yes. And really recognizing that overworking is an interferer to success. It means we've done too much. We're sacrificing ourselves, our happiness, our peace. And that's not really ideal. It doesn't
yeah.
help with creativity. It doesn't allow other gifts to shine.
Yeah.
So the strategy for this defined center is
Hmm.
give your mind a safe place to offload ideas. So everybody else who has this center, we can have a notebook where we just write down ideas so that they can have like a parking lot where they're
Hmm.
sitting in
Right.
the parking lot. And also allow yourself not the need to act on all of them
Yeah.
right away. You can
And
really see.
that's a learning process for me too,
Oh,
because I've
yes.
always been one, if you got an idea, run with it.
Yeah.
But to your point, sometimes ideas can be just that. It can be a starting point. It can be something to look at, which will give you further inspiration for something that isn't quite yet ready to show itself, right? So
Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
that's been something that I've had to learn too.
Yeah, and it's a learning skill, like learning to work with what we got and
Totally.
really allowing let the clarity rise naturally instead of chasing every thought and idea. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um now another part of your human design chart that stood out to me is your signature. Now, a signature is a feeling that you're living aligned, that everything is like feeling like it's lined up, you're headed in the right direction, and your signature feeling is satisfaction. So the mantra for this is I am worthy of satisfaction and success that feels fulfilling.
Yeah.
So, like, satisfaction is your internal signal that you're in alignment. And a lot of generators just buzz past. They're like, we
Yeah.
got this done and we're on to the next, you know? You let satisfaction land. It can help you to avoid burnout. It can help you to recognize all that you're doing with this, with this feeling. How do you celebrate, like, when you're feeling satisfied or you've just accomplished it? How do you celebrate yourself? Or has that been hard to like kind of stop and like,
Well,
oh,
it is sometimes because if I'm working on something or there's something else that's front of mind, it's like I'm always thinking about that, right?
yeah.
But for me, what I've really tried to do is, live in the moment a little bit more. I think for me, the struggle that I usually have is looking at, like you said, looking ahead to what's next and thinking about this is great. Let's celebrate this. Let's just bathe in it. Let's enjoy it. But tomorrow, let's get right back to it. But I've really learned a lot, especially since we've started going more into the retreat space in the last 5, 6, 7 years, is, allow yourself to kind of, part of that message is allowing yourself to have that experience where you're just kind of like celebrating, right? And for me, that is always about having experiences, is how I celebrate.
Yes, yeah. And it's really just taking a moment just to pause and to say, like, congratulate yourself, say what
Yeah.
you're proud of.
Yeah.
And I feel like I do this with my clients all the time. I'm like, what are you proud of yourself for doing lately? You know? And they're
Yeah.
like, I think this. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
that. And I bring the energy. I'm like, you did it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so satisfying for them to feel and honor themselves. And honestly, we need to be our best advocates. We need
Absolutely.
to be our best cheerleaders. And oftentimes we just forget that, you know, and we're
Yeah.
moving on to the next thing. So, what does like when you think about satisfaction and you think about what does that feeling feel like to you?
For me, it's about doing something that just fills me up, that fills up my cup. It's spending time with people that I really care about. It's going and doing things that are important. It's not about going and buying, stuff necessarily. Now, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and I do that too. But the older I get, it's like that's less important than it is just having quality time and an experience. And so whether that's
Yes.
me going off on my own and doing something, or it's, taking a little bit longer to take a walk in the morning, or sleeping in a little bit, or enjoying myself, and the doing something fun,
Yes.
that's how I do it. Is I say, you know
Yes.
what, I'm gonna take today off, and this is what I'm gonna go do because I want to.
Yeah, and really being intentional. I think you're being intentional to support yourself with joy and
Yeah.
happiness and allowing yourself to feel life. And I do too. I feel like that being present in the moment is really something that allows us to be happier
Yeah.
and to not be in this wanting more, because the wanting more monster can come in really easily,
Totally.
I need to get more
Well,
done.
we live in a world where we almost expect things to happen quickly. And when they happen, it's like, okay, what's next? It's like, it's just conditioning that we're taught from a very early age. And, social media and the online space has not helped with this. It's basically
Yes.
accelerated it. So
Yeah.
I think often, a colleague of mine has a saying. He says, make your mess your message. And I
Oh,
think sometimes when we're going through something that feels wonky or weird or
yeah.
crunchy or whatever, it's like, to me, there's always a lesson on the other side of that. And that's what the lesson is, what we need to be talking about. But we have to go through it first so that we can talk about it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
We have
I
to
think
go
there's a
through it.
lot of that. That is evident in my world everywhere I look right now.
Yes, yes. I love that. And the strategy for this piece of your chart is really like after small wins, whatever win it is, I often think about like, hey, I got out of bed today. I got dressed. I feel like that's a win, But acknowledge what you've done and really give yourself that I'm proud of myself for this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
I'm proud of
Yep.
myself. And it doesn't take long, but those
No, it doesn't.
feelings, yeah, it's like it can be 30 seconds and just be like, wow, look at this. That's so
Well, and I
cool.
also think too, the more that we do this work, the more that we understand that. I
Yes.
think it's very evident when we're around people who don't understand. And I think we
Yes.
have to really remind ourselves that, when people say things and reflect things to us or whatever, that it's never about us. It's always about where they are. And I think
Yeah.
during 2020, that was a big lesson that I had to learn, was the way people reacted and the decisions that they made, was a lot of where they were. But what I will say is that it took me a lot of work on myself to understand that it wasn't about me or anything I had done. But I still had the
Yes.
choice as to what I was going to do about it.
Yeah, you still had
Yeah,
the choice. You still had that power
totally.
to convert and take that opportunity. When I was looking at another part on your human design chart, and there's when we're looking at that body graph, there's all these lines on there, and these lines that are colored in, they're either gates or channels. Little lines are gates, bigger lines are channels. And so, but they all come down to the same thing. They're gifts that you were born with,
Mhm.
attributes that you have, characteristics that you can lean on. And this is gate 51. And your gate, the mantra for this is I create waves of impact and change. You're this catalyst, like this thunderbolt of transformation. I always love it when I get a good laugh. This is
Yeah.
so great. You shake things up and move people into growth. And it's really this ability to tap into their greatness. But oftentimes, when we're tapping into their greatness, we have to shake things up. We have to help people to see it, and help people to recognize it. But your ability is to create this impact and this change within transformations for others. Have you felt, because sometimes when we have to say things that create ripples that are big things, it can, there's some people pleasing that can come in, or, oh, am I going to say this wrong? Have you felt like tension between not wanting to ruffle feathers,
Oh
or has
yeah.
this always been something that you were like, yes,
No,
I
no,
got
I,
this?
I felt it. I'm an oldest child, and
Oh, okay.
oldest children, I think, have this story. You can call it a story, or you can call it kind of the way that we are, where we're considered kind of the responsible one. We're the one that
Mm-hmm.
kind of, does the right things and charts the course for the people who are coming behind them. So that totally resonates with me, because for a lot of years, even though I put on a good front that, I'm going to do what I want, but deep down, I didn't want to rock the boat. You know,
Mhm.
I wanted people to like me. Who doesn't want people to like them,
Yes.
right? So another lesson for me that came out of 2020 was finding that version of myself again where that I didn't feel that way, you know?
Mm.
And it's understanding that when you say something to somebody that is going to shake them up, to use your words, you're doing it, you can do it from a place of service and love and not from a place of being critical, right? And so to me, I just remember growing up, my mom used to always say, if we didn't love you, we wouldn't care what you did. So what I try to do with my clients and people that I talk to when I say, this story is not serving you, this is not something that's working for you, and this is what you should think about instead. And I kind of have kind of a snarky tone about me, and I've been told that that's one of my best attributes is that I don't mince words, I don't beat around the bush. I just think life is short, we don't have time for any of that. And if that's what you want, I'm not your person, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that you can do it from a place of service and you can do it because you care about what happens to somebody. So I think you can do it with tact. I think you can do it with confidence. And I think you can do it from a place of strength. And I think the more that you dial that in, I think it does make you a lot more powerful, not just as a coach, but as a leader too.
Yes, and really not overthinking it. And that people pleaser again is an interferer into success. It's an interferer into connection. It's when we're deciding that we want to like bend over backwards, or the relationship's not strong enough for us to hear these words, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Or my worth is how much I am loved or how
Yeah.
much I am liked, you know?
Yeah.
And those just interfere with success and connection. And
Yeah.
really, it's at the heart of it is
You
love, you
have to
know?
be able to say, something that maybe isn't pleasant for somebody to hear.
Yes.
You know, and but at
Yeah.
the same time, I think you can do it without being a jerk about it too, you know, for lack of a
Yes.
better way to say it, you know?
Yeah. And really be authentic to your own
Totally.
voice, you know?
Right.
And so the strategy really here is for you and for everyone else who has this gate is that impact isn't about making people feel comfortable. It's about helping them grow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
taking it as an opportunity. Hey, this is our opportunity to
Yeah.
grow together,
Right.
you
Totally.
know? So,
100%.
yeah. Have you felt that as you've had
Oh yeah.
those? Like,
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I felt it with clients when I've said, all right, I'm just going to state the obvious here, and so I just don't want there to be any mystery. Here's what's happening.
yeah.
And then I'll say, you know, that might not be what you want to hear, but that's the truth. You know, and I
Yes.
think as long as we're speaking our truth and we're doing it from a place of strength and love and service, I don't think, regardless of what happens, you will never lose.
Yes. You'll never lose. Yeah, exactly. It's not a lose. It's actually a win-win situation for
And it's
everybody
not a right
involved.
versus wrong. You know,
Yes.
it's not that either. Because just because you say something that isn't what somebody wants to hear or maybe isn't helpful for them doesn't make you right and them wrong or vice
Yeah.
versa, right? Just
Yeah.
means that energetically there's just much more going on, and that's always our work is to decide what we want it to mean.
Yeah, and I think that's I heard someone say once, you make a situation awkward by making it awkward. Do you know
Yeah,
like it's the
totally.
same thing if you make a situation it makes it icky, you know, or if you just are like, "Hey, this is what I'm noticing,
Yeah.
or this is what I'm seeing." And
And
also yeah.
people will often like, you know, what I have found is when people are fearful or they're
Mhm.
not sure or they're
Yeah.
not confident or whatever, they're going to revert to something that feels good to them, which is usually some kind of past story or something
Yeah.
that which is indicative of how they've lived because it's gotten them the results that they want. And sometimes when that mismatch is there, you can feel it. You can feel it.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
when I think you have to make a decision of service to yourself and say, this does no longer work for me.
Yes,
And I've
this
actually had to do that with clients before too.
yeah, and that takes a lot of bravery
Yep.
because it's this underlying underpinning that everybody can feel. And again, it's bringing that true, authentic nature of, hey, I care about you,
Yep.
but I have to say this in a way that I know is going to land in the right way because we're having a good energetic connection. And I don't want that to be inauthentic. And to me, that means everything. Having that authentic connection is everything. And
Totally.
really, yeah.
But you
So,
want to make sure that you're not leaving any mystery about where you're coming from. And
yes.
sometimes somebody else may take that as being hurtful. But as
Yeah.
long as your intention is clear, you
Yeah.
can't control how they're going to take it. You know?
Yes. Yeah, totally. And you can release
So,
that
yeah,
you've done your part, you know? Yeah.
totally.
Well, Allison, this has been so amazing just to go through your gifts and to speak with you about all these topics. Thank you so, so much for being here on the
Thank you.
podcast.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. I've never had my human design read before, so this was really fun. Thank you.
I'm so glad. Oh my goodness. And I know that our audience wants to be friends with you, just like we are friends. So how do they get into your world?
Well, they should come over to my website and connect with me. My website is www.thealisonk.com. That's Allison with one L. You can hit the connect button in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage and just write to me. I'd love to know like what I talked about today, something really resonated with you. And I'm going to offer you, well, I mean, this is free for anybody to come get on my newsletter list. I send out a newsletter every Friday called 5-Minute Fridays. And it's 5 points, 5 things I want you to think about each week. And in full transparency, it's a little bit about the 5 ways that we work with people here at CU Fitness and the Allison K Agency. So you can get caught up on where we're going on retreat. You can check out our podcast. I always have a little motivational story for you. There's always exercise and movement. So come get your edition of 5-Minute Fridays from my website, or I'll share the link with you and people can just subscribe directly. It's free. It's to your inbox every Friday.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that. And you guys do such amazing retreats. Like it's life-changing. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And listeners, thank you so much for being on here. This community means everything. If you're on Spotify or YouTube, you can drop in comments and questions and we'll circle back with you. And if you haven't pulled your human design chart from my site, go ahead and grab that and find out the gifts that you were born with. And I'm so excited that we get to use peace as a strategy instead of overworking, overthinking, or overgiving. And we'll see y'all in the next episode.